In any other year, what happened yesterday probably would have been one of the biggest news of the year. But since it's 2021, and considering what happened last year, I don't think that that's going to be I think it's going to be one of the biggest news stories of the year still, but I mean, probably something else insane is going to happen this year, so, or many things, so I don't even care. So, if you don't know, and I don't know how you can't know at this point, um, a bunch of far right Trump supporters, there were also some white supremacists and probably some neo Nazis in there too. Um, they stormed into the Capitol building and, well, they just kind of got inside, like literally got inside. Trump made a speech earlier that day about about how the election was stolen again and how uh, that they will like take it back or some shit like that. And yeah, after that, the bunch of Trump supporters just fucking stormed the Capitol building. Famous streamer Baked Alaska was there and he got kicked out. Nick Fuentes was actually not there. There was a tweet claiming that he was, and no, that has been confirmed false. It was not Nick Fuentes. But either way, what happened yesterday was fucking insane. So let's discuss this for a bit. Okay, so first off, um, the last time that the Capitol building was like stormed in was like in the 1800s. Like this hasn't happened like for like pretty much 2 centuries. The last time that the Capitol building was stormed into, and even during the Civil War period, there was never a Confederate flag flown in the White House or Capitol building or whatever you want to call it. I mean, yeah. Guess what happened yesterday? That first time that a Confederate flag was flown in the White House. I just I don't even know I don't even understand how like Congress just adjourned like so peacefully later that day to talk about the election and Trump's alleged fraud and shit like that. They just talked about it so normally later that day, like nothing happened. And that is completely insane to me that they did that. There's a picture of the Capitol building with a bunch of smoke everywhere and like Trump flags like flown everywhere, and like honestly it feels like something out of a dystopian novel or a dystopian movie or something. So I think it's I think it's important to try to understand how we got here. And how we got here is a lot of it does have to do with Trump himself, yes, because he keeps on pushing this absolutely baseless conspiracy theory that the election was stolen from him, which has been proven false multiple times. None of his lawsuits have gotten us anywhere. And of course, since I've always kind of thought that like people who support politicians like kind of like as sort of like prominent people, like people who like stan politicians, I guess you could say that, even though that sounds fucking stupid. But either way, people who act like that are like really obsessed with politicians, certain politicians, always a very creepy mindset, just not something you should ever do. You should never like idolize a politician, no matter who they are. I always kind of like thought that like these people were kind of in a cult, but like I never wanted to say it was a legit cult because I feel like that kind of I mean that kind of like makes like actual cults less significant. Kind of takes away from like I mean we can't just call everything that a bunch of people just like idolize random people that people idolize. We just can't call every like instance of that a cult. It just kind of takes away from actual cults. But I think Trump supporters are in that category the closest to a cult that you can get. They probably are in a cult because like this I don't because this is the only politician where people are literally willing to storm the Capitol building to stop like counting of electoral votes. I mean, none of them were like actually destroyed. They like got them out like because literally senators were fucking evacuated. It was like they were literally evacuated, people in Congress. And which really makes me wonder, like, were there really not like any other copies of the electoral votes? Was that it? Maybe there were other copies in there, but you think they would have another copy of the electoral votes somewhere? Either way, yeah. This is pretty much an attempted coup. Like this is an attempted coup. Like, of course, the United States has attempted coups in other countries before. I'm pretty sure like every president or like even a lot of other like government officials have done coups before, including Trump. But and like this is not the only coup that Trump has done. He's done coups in other countries. But like this is probably the first time when a coup has happened in our country, where they attempt a coup in our country. And because if this was happening in another country, we would like be sending we would like be sent we would do a coup there. We would like send our troops there. Like we have sent our troops to other countries for much less than this. But yeah, that happened, and it just felt so surreal to see this happen, and just seeing the police be so fine with it. Like only like 13 arrests when like the BLM protests had like a lot more than that, like 50 arrests in the BLM protests. And I mean, there was one woman who was shot, and of course I mean, she was like another like white supremacist Trump supporter, but like I mean, obviously it's not okay for that to happen. But still, like there were videos of the police literally letting these people inside. Like you just know if this was like a BLM protest that the police would have they would have gotten the rubber bullets, the tear gas, they would have beat these people. They would have been ruthless towards these people what they were during the BLM protests were just completely ruthless. But these like literally like people attempting a fascist coup, like they are just let into the White House, no questions asked. And what I'm not asking for these people to be beaten and killed like the people in the BLM protests. I'm asking for these people to be like I'm asking for the people in the BLM protests to not be beaten and killed, or well, except for the one person that was, to not be like beaten so ruthlessly like the people were yesterday at the Capitol building. It's that's all I'm asking for. And honestly, like at this point, if you're a Trump supporter, you're just kind of a shitty person. Like if this didn't like because Trump is literally enabling that. He's not even just enabling it; he's endorsing it. Like of course he did release a statement where he will peacefully concede that, but he never like peacefully concede to allow Biden to become president next. But he never is going to like explicitly call out what happened. He's going to continue to encourage this kind of behavior, and like even when he made a response to it, he never again he like yesterday because two of his tweets were deleted and his Twitter is being locked for like 24 hours and is in danger of being suspended. And if you don't know, Donald Trump being the president of the United States, he gets special protections on Twitter that most people don't get. So basically, like the kinds of things that Trump like tweeted out yesterday, since he's the president, he only gets his like Twitter locked. If it was like anyone else, their Twitter would have been suspended. Like I guarantee it. And that's kind of why I don't think the president should get special protections on Twitter, because if they're really acting like that, then maybe their account deserves to be suspended. But yeah, he just kind of said that the they're not protesters, they're not rioters. These are like pretty much terrorists. Like they stormed the Capitol building and tried to overthrow a what we know as a fair election. And they tried to do that. He called these people special and said that all they needed to do was to go home peacefully. But even then, he talked more about the election that was supposedly stolen from him more than the actual like act itself, and he never even directly like referenced or referred to the actual action that these people were doing. And even later, he made a tweet that was literally saying that this was justified because the election was stolen from him, saying that since the election was stolen from him, people are going to react in a certain way, which, again, that is literally an endorsement of the behavior that we're seeing. Like, this is just insane. And it's just, I don't know. There was also some Twitter drama between Mike Pence and Donald Trump, and like Mike Pence unfollowed Donald Trump and has kind of like criticized him for encouraging this and has even changed his Twitter banner to him and his wife. It's not actually Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, which a lot of people thought, which I don't blame them, but it is Mike Pence and his wife. And first off, if there's anybody to rehabilitate from this, it's not Mike Pence. He is the absolute last person that you should rehabilitate because he has also encouraged a lot of the election fraud nonsense that like voter fraud nonsense that Trump is pushing. So if there's any, and like he didn't really do anything when Trump was pushing those lawsuits, and it's just that this is literally his vice president. This is literally the vice president. If anything, Mike Pence is the one who's the second most like responsible for this. So like please, if there's anybody to not rehabilitate from this situation, it's Mike Pence. He's just as much of a fascist as Trump is, and please do not rehabilitate him. He also supports gay conversion therapy, so I hope you don't forget that. I mean, Trump probably, I mean, I'm pretty sure Trump does too, but like Pence does. Like Pence does support gay conversion therapy. He really hates gay people, and I really want people to remember that before they rehabilitate Trump, because they did the same to George W. Bush, despite all like I don't know what his death count is for the Iraq War. It's probably Iraq and Afghanistan wars. It's probably like fucking like close to 1 million or something. And like, I mean, I'm not saying Trump's death count is low. I mean, it's probably also like really fucking high, but I'm just saying that George Bush, I'm seeing some rehabilitation of George Bush, and that's somebody we shouldn't like rehabilitate. But yeah, of course, like people like George Bush and Mitt Romney and like Mitch McConnell and fuckers like that, they did stand against this or something. Um, okay, so yeah. What we see today is why I don't think that Democrats should reach across the aisle to the Republicans, because like almost half of Republicans did support storming into the Capitol building to overturn what we know as a fair election. It's not even what we know. Like it's what is, because that's what it was. It was a fair election. Half of Republicans support this. And it's just, we can't reach across the aisle to these people. Like, there was literally a guy in Congress yesterday who's claimed that these Trump supporters who stormed the Capitol building were Antifa infiltrators, which is not true at all. And people and like Republicans gave him clapped for him. Like they clapped for this person. There were still Republicans who voted like to overturn the election results in Arizona, like including Ted Cruz. Well, I don't know if it was Arizona because I didn't really check, but Ted Cruz did vote in a state to overturn the election results, and I thought I should mention that. But anyway, anybody who votes for this is literally encouraging this kind of behavior, and I seriously, there should be repercussions for that, even if it means removing them from office, because this should not be allowed. Like this is not something that should ever be allowed, and people are being way too soft on this. Um, this is always why I kind of like laugh at people who suggest that Nancy Pelosi has no purpose other than to like be anti-Trump, because if she's anti-Trump then she does a really shitty job of doing that because she like fucking because like her extent of being anti-Trump is tearing a copy of his speech apart while still supporting all the things he does. And what I mean by that is that literally everything that Pelosi does, like everything that she funds, just so happens to help Trump like achieve his goals. So, like Nancy Pelosi basically does the bare fucking minimum when it comes to being anti-Trump. Maybe she does personally hate Trump, but if she's anti-Trump, then she does a really fucking horrible job of doing it. And honestly, like I wish she was anti-Trump because Nancy Pelosi is not anti-Trump at all. Anyway, one last thing I want to mention is Joe Biden, president elect, of course, did release a statement saying that America is so much better than what we saw today. And the sad truth is that it really isn't. That's the sad truth. It really is not. This country was founded on white supremacy, and you can see that white supremacy is still so ingrained in our country, in this society. It is so ingrained here that, and like what you saw, like the fact that Trump was even allowed to happen is because America just did not like give, just stopped care, just did not care about the working class at all. And for so long. And then we have Trump who promised to be a part of the working class, and which is fucking hilarious because I mean Trump is pretty much one of the most Trump is like one of the most pro establishment figures in government right now. So I mean saying that he's like anti-establishment is like fucking hilarious. But either way, like Trump was even the reason why Trump happened is because of like all of like years of America just disregarding like the working class and just kind of becoming an oligarchy. So and like white supremacists like the civil rights protests in the 60s, and the police were like extremely harsh on that. They like fucking hosed down protesters, they beat them with they terrorized them with dogs. Like yeah, America really isn't that good. Like slavery literally was a defining feature of this country for fucking like almost a century. Like we like for like the first century for almost like the first century of this country, we bought and sold black people. So yeah, the sad truth is that America really isn't that great. It never was that great. So and we have to admit that. Um I guess I should comment on whether or not Trump should be removed from office. Like I understand he only has like 2 weeks left anyway, but honestly, like I really don't care. Like if Trump gets removed from office, it's probably for the best, even if there's only 2 weeks left of his presidency. Because like I mean, at that point, like this is just going too far. Like there needs to be repercussions for this. And I know that no president ever faces repercussions for their actions, but I think if we have a chance to punish Trump for this, then like removing him from office, even when he only has like 2 weeks left, is probably for the best. Anyway, that's all I have to say for what happened yesterday. Have a great day.